live. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. So we are live on all platforms: Facebook, Instagram, um, TikTok, and YouTube. I just wanted to moment out of my day and night to give this profound talk. And the title of today's talk, tentatively so far, is titled Raising Young Gods. As today we will talk about my current students, their age, and what's going on within the Rapid Realization program. Uh, and so, all of 99% of my talks are live for a reason, because I wanted, it's like kind of like my journal. It's kind of like a video journal that documents my life and my programs and the state of mind of this particular monk in the midst of his day-to-day operations and routine. So I took a break from writing my book, and I think I have a good idea, um, a good idea how I'm going to finish it. And it's to me, I think it's going to be a masterpiece. So I have the idea. I don't want to share that idea. I think it'll be a surprise to everyone once you hold the book in your hand. And that is good news. What we don't want is someone who's writing a book and obstructed by whatever, and it's dragging. So I'm already 6 days past my due date, my my extension. So back to the primary subject at hand is that number one, due to fundings, the program is hanging on by a thread. And this is in regards to the local students here. And they know that when we have resources available, I called them up and I said, let's go out and have lunch and let's chit chat and talk. And also I let them go rock climbing and amongst other sports so that they take their mind out of what's happening at the time of this talk. And this talk is dedicated to a few students who are dealing with some things with their family. And this talk comes one day after Thanksgiving. So first and foremost, I like to give thanks to all of the students who have been following the precepts, who have committed to not doing harm to themselves and to other people. And the first training in the threefold training is the gift of safety, Sila, of which I take very seriously. And the students under my jurisdiction, guidance, and direction have heeded that training wisely. And so, it's puts a smile on my face, a smile that is now becoming more and more rare and more a little bit more difficult. I'm starting to see why senior monks don't really smile that much in this tradition. Is because whatever, I don't, whatever, well, all holy men, priests, rabbis, monks, for example, in the industry of holy men, is that we hear people confess and we hear stories. And as a direct result of that stories, we have responsibilities and obligations to guide the person into the light and away from darkness. And those senior monks, I'm pretty sure they have heard it all. Myself, as a young monk, well, not that young, but in the eyes of senior monks, I still consider myself a junior monk. It's just a humble thing to do. In the eyes of the rest of the world, and for the many of you, you hold me to the regards that you have in high esteem. So, but I'm starting to realize why they don't They don't smile. And again, I wanted to express how proud I am of my students for exercising extreme restraint when it comes to your buttons being pushed by family members and by people out there in the world, in your working environment, and homework and school. It is exactly what I want you to do. It is exactly what I want you to do when I'm not there. What would Jesus do? What would the Buddha want you to do? And you're doing exactly what our great philosophers, gods, uh, venerables, and saints want you to do, and which is not to respond in an unwise, unintelligent manner. Um, so this talk is dedicated to this one student who has living arrangement issues and having to move back to some really toxic people. And I know the student and his or hers capacity. Now, student, I'm just being mindful what I'm broadcasting out. Needs to be right speech. Needs to go through a bunch of layers of monastic filters. Um, so the parent of this particular student, I having direct knowledge of the parent's tendency and toxicity, there are times where I sit here and I scratch my head and, and I just want to go over there and tap them on the shoulder and say, "Excuse me, do you realize that you are playing with fire? Excuse me, do you realize that you are playing with a god?" Today's talk tentatively is titled Raising Young Gods. That is because I have kept a lot of them from playing God. I have kept a lot of students from getting a hold of a gun, whether that gun is used for self-defense or that gun is used for other purposes. I've kept many and steered them away from getting a gun. Last night, I got a little bit bored, so I got on a TED Talk, and it was a male speaker, Asian male speaker, who spoke about family toxicity, as the speaker is Chinese, came from a Chinese home parent, and he spoke about family contracts and negotiations thereafter. And the way how he just, I understand his pain and the level of toxicity, even though, some of these talks are very superficial, as in the speaker can't really say what they really, really, really deep down inside want to say. They need to keep it cordial, just like how I'm doing right now. But sometimes you will get glimpses of the other side of the venerable, like you all have been listening to my one-on-one sessions this past week, and you see certain adult level language being used to tame certain adult, midlife little adult levels. Trust me, I had to constantly adjust my level of responding and teaching and guiding students of all ages. So this particular week, I was dealing with a student of which I know is stubborn and hard-headed, and so I had to, be stern, con- consistent, and indicative of what the Buddha would do in such situations, as the Buddha himself have demonstrated how stern he was when speaking with unruly monastics. Um, so, anyways, this speaker, he was just so nice about identifying the problem and solutions to the problem. And I was just like, oh, that's really nice of you. That's really nice to say it and put it in that way, because I obviously would not. just due to the magnitude and depth of the toxicity in certain family households. The level of harm inflicted by parents onto their kids through words, through demands and expectations, and just the toxic level of how they say it, when they say it, where they say it. It's like, wow, it's no wonder we see in modern days with the latest shooting at the Walmart of the young man who was a manager that shot six or seven people. When they profiled his family background, they realized the mother's been arrested, and it's just hell in that home. You know what I mean? And you have a lot of compassion for him, even though, yeah, he did carry out evil, but that evil was fueled by majority propelled at home, what he saw, how his reality is, how he perceived his reality is, and so on. That young man's life is no different than some of these young men here locally that I am guiding and holding at bay, teaching them how to restrain themselves and not to act on impulse and not to act on their emotions and never turn to the dark side, even though it seems like the savage life chose them. Trouble that have found them or their level of karmic debts that is playing out in their young life right now. Very intense. Very, very intense. Um, I think the world have observed me cry before publicly, like 3, 4 times while on live stream. But I cry in other sense when the world is not watching. I go to bed thinking about some of these students, and my heart bleeds, hoping that they would not act on their impulse, would not act on the anger or just the unfairliness of life towards them. Um, and it makes me sometimes I'm like, what kind of mess did you get yourself into, Venerable Chidao? Because you, as a Theravadan monk, is supposed to be running into the forest, sitting there and achieving sainthood. Rather, you have delayed your progress as a monk, your spiritual progress and attainment, and engaging in very similar bodhisattva operations, mode of operations. But I know somewhere down the line, I'm impacting a lot of people, like what you all have seen, and into the young lives of these young men here, and women, by the way, here locally. And I know that I will be remembered. But right now, things are very heated, and this talk is dedicated for them, because I'm directing them to go to it, and I just want them to meditate, go back to CBT, sit with it, even though it's difficult, the emotions that arises, and to remind themselves that all things in life is impermanent. Your state of mind, your emotion, whatever situation that you're in right now, is not going to last forever, even though in this moment you may perceive that it is lasting quite a long time, or it could last a little longer than you anticipate while you get yourself together, your finance together, to move out away from certain toxic people. Let's talk about each student's capability of being God. All you have to do is go out and get a 38 revolver or a Glock. Now they have Glock switches, which is a $5 plastic piece you put behind the Glock, and it becomes fully automatic, and it will give federal agents a very hard time. Matter of fact, it gives SWAT team a very hard time trying to subdue such subject armed with a fully automatic Glock. And that's how you play God. And that's what we're watching in America unfold is, mass shootings, AR-15s, a backpack full of hundreds of ammos, and so on. It is not wise for some of these family members to push the buttons of their children. Parents need to behave, act like actively living Buddhists, as consistent with other Southeast countries that hold parents to such standards. Therefore, students who operate on a standard of a Buddha does not say unwise things, hurtful things, blame, guilt, the guilt trip, the whole 10 yards above it all. And I am seeing more parents behave consistent with the animal rebirth realm than anywhere near sainthood. Therefore, I hope the students understand that I understand what's happening at home and never to join the dark side because of this is what's happening to you and this is what exactly that is happening actively at home. And I know that life is unfair to all of you, each and every single one of you. We don't get to choose our parents. Oh, and by the way, folks, don't have kids. Please don't have kids. The world is plenty of kids. And I am like a venerable father who having to raise these kids because most of these kids don't actually have a biological father. And if you are planning to be a parent or is a parent right now, oh my God, please study parenting skills and please study Buddhism and practice the Noble Eightfold Path and apply that directly, immediately, without hesitation or delay with your children. What you're hearing here is sample of the population, but it is also representing 95% of what our children are going through out there in the world, in the United States and across the UK and Australia. It is not good. We are losing the battle slowly, slowly, gradually. We will subsequently see these gods, play gods. And yes, they will subsequently end up in prison and I will visit them. But just know that the prevalence of these things happening is on the rise very quickly, spiking. Because I know what my students are capable of, as beautiful as they are inside. But they also have the capacity to do a lot of harm. And they are of age to have access to tools and equipment to do that type of harm. And so, yeah, yes, I do pray. And there are some nights I pray more than other nights. And I pray to and ask the celestial beings and the devas to hold these kids at bay and to mitigate their mental suffering. And please don't ever let them walk out. And the devas and celestial beings to create the causes and conditions to obstruct them from carrying out whatever it is that they want to carry out because we all humans have the capability to entertain certain thoughts and fantasies because life is unfair to us. Certain people in our life is unfair to us, and certain family members are unfair to us. But know and remind yourself that nothing good comes from acting to that type of degree, either suicidal ideations or homicidal ideations. Prison is not a good thing. Living with regret is not a good thing. Harming other people is not a good thing because they too have parents and everybody else that is relying on them to come home safely. Therefore, the active students of the Venerable Qidao, the School of Intelligence, the Rapid Realization Program, is to please think before you act. And this student really respects me. And at times, in the presence of their boyfriend and girlfriend, they have said, listen, I hold the Venerable up here. And if you do, please reflect that what would the Venerable want you to do in times of distress, in times of agitation, in times of anger, because you all are humans. You all are going to have it. I try not to let people down in my life just because I wanted them to be proud of me. And so, therefore, back in my younger days, I had a gun and I did not carry out certain things because I realized, well, what would Principal Michael Miller, Northeast High School, would want me to do in this moment? And how would he think about me taking my life in high school? Because I did the afternoon announcements and he really liked me. And I felt that if I took my life in high school, that it would not, it's just, I don't think he would want that. I had a lot of teachers that, that really thought that this was a student that is exceptional and I didn't want to fail them. So therefore, you young students out there in your 20s, reflect. And I know that in your life, sometimes I'm not always there all the time. My absence, or I'm far away in the city. Just reflect that what would Buddha want you to do? What would Chidao want you to do? And to really, really please think about it, because I've been to a lot of funerals. And I don't need to visit you in prison or go to funeral homes or visit you in the ER or somebody else in the ER. There were a few students that came down to see me from other states. Their trip was made possible by their parents who saved up and gave me resources, which is money, so that I could spend time with them, match their level as young adolescents in high school, to take them around town, to create the causes and conditions for me to relate to them, to get them to open up so that I understand their world, for me to figure out, to identify the problem, and to come up with solutions, lasting solutions, for them to take back home, skills, and so on and so on. I need to relate to them quickly and get them to like me, so that they respect me, so that they can, practice the teachings of the Buddha as they go home. And I have effected that purpose. In my next book, um, Buddhist Psychotherapy, the challenges faced in inspiring young students is that we have to listen. They don't want to go to a temple. It's very boring and very religious type atmosphere. The monk has to create causes and conditions and get them to open up somehow. We have challenges across with students who are introvert, extrovert, ADHD, um, hypermanic, bipolar. I mean, we have to match their level to try to save them as much as possible. We can't save all of them, but just the necessary resources to come up with all sorts of ingenious programs and field trips and camping trips and all of these things that we see Boy Scouts do and field trips that schools do, so that kids feel like they're having fun but learn in the process of having fun. And I can't seem to finish this book fast enough just because I have my own obstructions. Um, but you know, the soonest the publisher said this book will be published is September, October next year. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be the end of next year. And I promise that the majority of the proceeds will go into the programs that is necessary. Can y'all hear me on YouTube? Someone just said no sound on YouTube. Shoot. That's okay. I can always upload from. Man. Y'all give me 1 second real quick. Just want to check my audio. Okay, it's working. So I promise the majority of the funding will go. And the scary part is that systemically, we have a lot of kids out there that in these dark places. There's not enough program, there's not enough qualified, experienced people to understand their suffering and to give them the individualized attention necessary to keep them at bay. That's the worry. I couldn't tell you all how many shootings we've got in the United States with young people. Remember that kid in Orlando? Like 19-year-old kid in Orlando? You know, he had like weed or whatever sticking out of his bag, was in the mall trying to pick up young girls. Police officer chased him out, and then somewhere down the line saw drug paraphernalia, like misdemeanor. It's got to be like misdemeanor. Yeah, but who cares if it's felony? You didn't kill anyone. You have drugs in your bag. Okay. Well, the student had this great idea of reaching into the bag and pulling out a gun and firing at an Orlando police officer at Millennium Mall. Ran across the parking lot, exchanged gunfire, and then took his own life. Bright, smart, intelligent, good-looking kid, 19 years old. And we're going to see more of it, folks. We're going to see a lot more of it. It is to come. It's coming at a very high rate of speed. So that's a worry for law enforcement. That's a worry for holy men. That's a worry that all of you should have. That's because our world is coming to that. And pretty soon you're going to be walking out, going grocery shopping, holding your jug of water, and there's a 9mm flying everywhere. They don't know how to restrain themselves. They don't know what to do. And in the moment of them arguing or whatever unfavorable aspect is in their life, they perceive that to be permanent, that my life is over because this is happening and this is who I'm living with and this is my situation and circumstances. I don't have a way out. And the only way out is to take a life, go to prison. I don't know what it is, but we're seeing all of this manifest and unfold. So anyways, I don't want to drag this any longer. It's obviously not good news, and I think all of you could use some good news. So for the time being, do what you can. Support the program as much as you can. For those who are inspired by this particular story with what's going on with my program, donate wherever you can. What is it? YMCA, just all of these programs that is out, nonprofit that is out there that's trying to keep these kids just trying to burn up time so that they would see the light. We have a lot of competing issues within the secular world and the rise of secularism that is one of the major contribution and causes of this. And I'm trying to do the best I possibly can within the programs that I have with the students that is under my guidance right now. And I'm so proud of them for not acting out. And one student's in New York right now, and that student did 180-degree change. Part of my program is rewarding good behavior. And that I did actually yesterday at Thanksgiving. I sent the student $100 in my $300 budget. $300 budget of a month to pay for co-pays when I go to the doctor's office. And I realized I'm going to take 1/3 of my checking, which is also my savings, because I don't have a savings. Remember, we owe nothing, we want nothing. And I decided to make the student happy. And I told the student, I said, a gift is pointless from a teacher if there's no intention and the explanation behind it. And I said, you know what, you are a very exceptional student. And I have a lot of background information. I have direct knowledge of their life, their stress, the bows and arrows that flies at them, through them, in life. And they just remain so calm in the midst of it all. But I know, because I can see it in their eyes, I can see the telltale signs of what they're capable of. And had it not been this philosophy and way of practice and training, psychological training, the influence and inspiration, they can very easily flip of the switch. And they got friends, and their friends got a lot of Glocks sitting around, a lot of ghost guns sitting around. And I'm just very proud of these students for just keeping straight on the path and not to do anything foolish, and that they are reflecting wisely, you know, that not to act as. I'm so grateful. I think all of humanity should pray tonight and realize how grateful life-saving programs as such and life-saving programs across in America within nonprofit are doing to just keep kids. As you are not aware, if you look up, what is it, mafia, teenage mafia schools or something, teenage mafia something. In Italy, the wonderful mafias have recruited children like 15, 14, 16 years old running around with Beretta 9mm 92 FS on their hips, while robbing people. They rob people, they sell drugs, they come back and give it to their boss and then share the money. And it's a whole documentary. It's very real. Italian cops have a very hard time. When the reporter asked these kids, "What do you plan to do with that gun?" And the kid says, "Well, if the people try to hurt me as I'm trying to rob them, I'm going to hurt them with this gun." The kid pulls out a Beretta Black 92 FS 9mm semi-automatic. With the safety off, puts it on the table, and tells the reporter. The kid tells the other kid, these are very bright, intelligent kids, by the way. You can see it in their eyes. You can see lit. Their eyes are lit with intelligence. They're just early praise and promise across all spectrum of measurement of intelligence. They just don't know how to live wisely. They're there. They're in Italy. They're just, this is all they know. They can't get jobs. It's just family's poor. It's the whole shebang, 9 yards of that. But anyway, the kid asked the other kids, like, do you want him to take it apart and put it back together for you to see? And this poor 30-year-old female reporter was like, no, that's okay. And all of us are watching this part of our case study. And we're watching this gun on the table and we're just like, I hope they don't shoot each other by accident on this table. Thank God a Beretta 9mm has a very long trigger pull. Thank God it does not have a hairline 1 pound trigger pull. That would just be horrendous. Mind you, I used to be a firearm instructor, so I know these things. And I'm just watching this gun go back and forth on the table, and I'm just like, please don't shoot yourself. Don't shoot other people. But it is within time. And they're so intelligent, they realize they're going to go to prison for like 5 years. Robbing people. And they're like, we don't care. That mentality is no good. The young gods of Italy. No different than the young gods here in America. Growing up at Northeast High School, I remember the Bloods and the Crips, and they were running around across the street from our school with bandanas and guns on the. These wonderful St. Pete police officers used to hop out of their cars, and these gang members used to hang out like I don't know if they were picking up girls or whatever. They're right across the street. Like you cannot miss them in that one particular corner that's very uniform, very visible. And I remember every day we all of us kind of look across the street for action. This was like straight HBO. You didn't have to pay for HBO because it's right there after school, 2 p.m., 1:50 p.m., right there. And these undercover cops would just, just like explode out of their cars, putting them in handcuffs on a daily basis. I don't even know where these gang members come from. I know that there was times where they were infiltrating our school through the back in the parking lot. It was just a mess. This was like, I'm 35. This was like 20-something years ago. Where do you think our world is now today? Folks, there are times where I'm looking at my own life as a monk, looking at my own robes, the meaning of these robes, and I'm like, did I choose the wrong profession? Should have just go back to law enforcement where I was rejected in the first place for having speeding tickets. I'm like, am I really actually making a difference? What happened if one of these kids actually act on their impulse and emotion? It seems to me, just as a hypothesis and just something, a strand of thought. It seems to me that, and I got friends now who are becoming cops, and I'm just like, what's happening here? I mean, they must see that there is a need for it to enforce the law to keep us safe. Literally, like the meaning of safety, the reflection and meaning of safety. Literally, like, um, hell, I got friends that I would never imagine them being cops, and now they're cops. They're here working here, and I'm just wondering. I'm like, what kind of difference am I making? It's really hard to measure the difference that I'm making, especially when students in and out all the time. It's like a revolving door. It's difficult measuring and tracking them, because their life ever changes, just like all of our life ever changes with people in it, and the stuff that's happening and the drama that is unfolding. And you know, I I'll never put GPS on them, but it just makes me curious, spiritually curious, incomparable to the law enforcement realm where they're taking bad guys away every single day. Direct experience that you're making a difference because little Joey or little Tom, Dick, and Harry is not going to run around with that gun no more. So today I just wanted to share these few thoughts with you as it captures a moment in my life of witnessing and the program of Buddhist psychotherapy, rapid realization program, and just this is my life in raising these young gods without parents or unruly parents, or just I'm walking into their life. I made myself available to the public. I walk into these young people's lives. I'm witnessing all of these unfold. I use the Dhamma to apply to mitigate and lessen their suffering, and hopefully that they just try to keep straight on the path as much as possible. I'd like to conclude my talk for tonight, and tomorrow I have to teach at Blissful Beginnings. Anyone who is showing up to Blissful tomorrow at 9 a.m., I look forward to seeing you all. Part of your psychological training, continuous psychological fitness. And those donations at Blissful Beginning goes back to these programs. It's like a revolving door, trying hanging on by a thread. This program is at its extreme destitute, and I think part of this talk is to paint the picture of the severe deficits relying on crowdfunding to keep these programs going. So again, this talk was dedicated for these high-risk students, and again, as we wait for people to continue their support in keeping our programs going, please remain restrained, psychologically restrained yourself. Do not act on impulse. Do not act on anger. Stay calm, chill, let it go. Learn to let go quickly. Meditate. Get out of there. Don't stick around when all these things are unfolding the way that they're unfolding. If someone's pushing your buttons, get out. Count 1 to 10, back to the breathing techniques, back to studying the Dharma. Whatever is troubling you, that is your teacher, said Ajahn Chah. And I would never want none of the students within this particular school, within the school of Chi Dao, the school of intelligence and wisdom, to ever act. It makes the school look really bad. It makes me look really bad in front of the whole world. So remember that your actions represent Buddhism, your action represents me, your actions represent your peers who are in this program, the students before, the students now, and the foreseeable future students to come. May you all be well, be happy, be free, and always be healthy. May you know what it's like to restrain your ayatanas, your sense doors, your faculties. May you know what it's like to achieve peace by and through self-restraint. May you know what it's like to be truly happy, inner freedom, inner liberation, and by and through the practice of the teachings of the Buddha. May you know what it's like to feel safe and be safe by and through the teachings of the Dhamma, as the Dhamma is there to protect you. May you remind yourself that it is the teacher's job to protect you by and through his teachings, and reminding of these teachings over and over again. May you all be well, be happy, be free, always be healthy. May you realize the light of your own true. May you veer towards the light and not towards darkness. May you be healed and be a source of healing to other people. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And so I'd like to conclude tonight's talk. Thank you all for joining and being wonderful listeners. Please share this if you find this inspirational and people who can relate to them.